a film or a game. But each one of those things gets to stand alone as an experience that makes sense, that's telling a piece of this bigger story. And for people who want to keep going, keep people who you've inspired to join that story, they get to play in different ways and put together those pieces as part of a bigger story world. When we first started using this term, when I was working on major film franchises, this idea was kind of novel, which it feels weird, right? It feels strange that if you create something that's great in different ways and all of the pieces fit together, people would love it more. But that sort of foundation, that technique is, it's part of current film franchises, game franchises. And I think one of the great joys of it is it means that you can play with traditional platforms and you get to explore new projects, new experiences, new models with it as well. Does that make sense to you, Jeremy? Speaking the right language?
Yes, absolutely. And I think as the internet has drastically reshaped how we communicate globally, instantly, and all that, right? Like it also is opening
Mhm.
up such an important element here too, to be able to remember, like it's like audiences now participate, whether creators
Mhm.
even want them to or not, they have a voice, right? So the more we're able to
Yeah.
embrace and create platforms like where we can bring audiences in to not just consume, but start to participate and even create along the road with that journey, that's a big part of this too.
Yeah. So I think that for all of you in the audience, like you live in an environment and you get to play with media projects that have really been developed with transmedia in mind most of the time now. The great sort of triumph of this is it's kind of the goal for all media now, for all of its pieces to fit together, to engage people wherever you find it and bring it together. But when we add Web3 elements into this, when we're looking by design and saying, how is this going to work with a community? How is this going to connect with the audience? If do our job right, you're going to want to spend time with us in this world for a long time. How do we build the foundation for that? And how do we build productions that are adaptable enough that we can take the story anywhere? Um,
I love that. I love that. I feel
yeah.
like it's such a complex thing that not a lot of people truly understand, right? And that's why it's been so eye-opening to kind of see inside and out everything that you guys do, because there's truly so much that goes into the background processes to make this really happen. And then when you think about some of the best IPs out there, or the best brands out there, like all this stuff has taken years and years and processes to get them to the point where they're at now, and it's just kind of a cool process to see that all go in. From my perspective, definitely to see that kind of happening in real time here. So it's just been really awesome. I think too, like one of the things that would be really interesting to talk about too is talking about like sort of like comics and some of the animations and things that sort of we're working on in the background, and sort of talking maybe about how that has sort of begun, and sort of some of the goals of all that stuff.
Um, Dave, I'm happy to start in here, but Dave, Howdy, Jeremy, please, just jump in on me at any time. But you know, we we have been working really closely with the Wen team and members of the community, and the feedback that you're all bringing in, to sort of take a look and see how has Wen um inspired so much affection. I mean, he's the cutest cat on the internet, but he's also this space explorer. He is this character who is navigating this wide world. And it's not just the art that's been created by the really talented team at Wen that got us excited initially, but it's looking at how the rest of the community is also playing with Wen as a character. And what can we do to build platforms and formats in a world that's big enough for all of that? So there are a few things that our backgrounds combined, and I'm really excited to dive into some of our backgrounds so you all can see this puzzle piece as this team has come together, um, combined to really bring some amazing new opportunities to life and to use new tools to create pipelines that are going to be flexible and responsive for all sorts of different types of format. So in our press release that came out earlier this year, we talked a little bit about comics, short animation, and things like that. And that's all true. But before we get there, we have to dive into like what has made this tick? Why is this character so cool and delightful? What is it about this that keeps resonating? And what have all of you made that we want to be inspired by as we're creating something that is not just reflecting and opening up new space for community creation, but also looking to traditional formats and traditional partners? And how can we put this together in a way that it appeals to the widest audiences and appeals to bigger platforms, bigger distributors, bigger opportunities to bring this to life who have more traditional mindsets. Even as the media and environment and entertainment industry environments really change around a lot, there are still some parameters that we need to look at to combine. How do we look at traditional intellectual property? How do we look at traditional forms of creation for, say, animated films or things like that? And how do we take a step back and look at how we build that out for something that can grow in any direction the audience tells us it should. Um, where we start with that is themes, key elements, what the community talks about, what the community cares about. And then we start building out ideas for the world. We create some guidelines and some themes, but we really dive pretty deep with the core team and the core creative team that have built Wen into what it is now, and look what archetypes can we use to build out here and create a foundation that lets us start playing with concepts for locations emerge in different ways. And what's a little different now is we're also thinking about where are we going to let the community have the opportunity to play in a way that makes sense and isn't going to scare off larger partners as we build. And how do we create tools? I think I feel like everyone has played with AI at least a little so far. But as we're looking at animation pipelines and creative pipelines, the tools are changing really fast. So how do we build a system and how do we build a creative set of forms that can adapt and take advantage of those new tools? Um, I mean, we have a lot rolling, but the production process that we've built is shaving years off the time it takes to make a full feature length piece or to develop the concepts for work. And while we're not quite ready to show you guys where it's at yet, um, the fact that this has been less than a year to get us to a point where we are excited to be able to talk about release dates soon. That's an incredible feat. And Dave, if you want to speak to that, Jeremy, if you want to speak to that a little bit, like I know that this is talking about a production, but it's been really exciting to see what we've been able to make with these new tools and these new systems that can then make comics, make shorts, make all sorts of different pieces that we can build out for different types of interoperable platform.
Real quick, also as a creative director, I love that you mentioned that there is a human touch to this, and I
Mhm.
think as soon as AI comes up in the conversation, there's like I'm sure that this community is a little more informed than most people, but people feel like it's flipping a button or pushing a button, and I feel like seeing this process and the combination of a human storytelling and even just like hand drawing combining with the AI is what's really gotten me excited about the project from a creative direction standpoint. It makes things feel more unique. I think that that really comes through in the work, and I'm very excited for everyone to check it out. I thought it was worth
Yeah.
saying because I grew up drawing, and I don't want to lose that completely.
Yeah. And I think anyone who's played with these AI tools know that curation and adjustment and all of that is really key if you want the work that's coming through to not be lame. And I think the bar that's been set by Wen for everybody is here on X, everybody's a bit seen the Wen account. The art there is really high level, and some of it is built from AI, and the community has made some amazing art. But it also that's not just the outcome of a mechanical process that is curated. That is something that you take the time to look at, refine, and build out. And we also know that this is going to be a global project. And not only do we want to make sure that we're bringing the best of human creativity and the best of machine tools to help us get there to life, we want to make sure that this is something that is protected, something that we can stand behind and get the correct protections to build it into bigger projects and tools in every region. And that means, the EU has a different sense of how do we create a foundation for IP readiness that is legally protected and usable than the current North American context. And yeah, everyone on this call has been around Web3 enough to know that those kinds of regulations, they change, they shift, they get really fractional. And when we look at this from an IP perspective, how do we build this as a project that grows across platform and we can bring to life for people all over the world? That's something that has to go in it. And, the good news is most of those protocols have some degree of AI plus human integrated. And we've been working really hard to make sure on a creative level, both of those points are hit.
Can I just jump in and say, like, as well, like AI is in the process, you need a human there to be part of it because like it gets left out otherwise. But on the other
Yeah.
side of it as well, like AI lets us open the IP to the community to create and play and show us what they think of the IP as well. So it's really interesting what's
Um,
coming down the line.
uh, I think, it's also, we're really excited to be working on a Web3 native program because, I see a lot of you in the audience who were part of the programs that I was working on with DC and WB for, Web3 programs, the Backhow collection. Big ups to my GDCK community in the audience. But starting with a new IP coming from this Web3 community means we have different sorts of ideas and different sort of mentalities around how we can open space for people to benefit and engage with us that aren't the same ones that come from working with an IP with a huge legacy. Where there are so many different licenses and so many different structures that they are already locked into that make it harder for us to create open space for people to create in the world. And we know that we'll be able to do new things and experiment with more things in this story world than projects that you may have known from my past or ones that have more traditional Web 2 partners at their origin. So super excited to be able to build out some of those and share them with you all as they come to life.
Yeah, that's awesome, and it is really cool to think about how, year by year, right? Everything is changing from in this world, right? With using new tooling, and being able to capitalize on on the ever changing world. It obviously goes just almost as fast probably as crypto and other things. So that's why it's kind of fun to be on top of it, and also use a lot of these things going forward with Wen. And I wanted to point out too, if anyone has not seen the initial press release we did earlier this year, I have it pinned at the top, so you can go ahead and see that. And then also for anybody who has questions, towards the end of the spaces, we'll be allowing people to come up and talk, or just going over through some of the community questions or comments, and we can go from there. So, but I want to jump into sort of the next part of this and talk about like the goal of us partnering with Elevate, right, is of course to bring Wen to the largest heights and get visibility and create one of the best IPs out there, right, and really compete with some of the best brands, crypto and non-crypto, entailed there. And that's why I'm really excited to be working with you guys with Elevate, because I feel like it's the perfect partner to really help us get there, and it couldn't be a better partnership going forward. So I think what could be really cool, maybe Jeremy Hughes, maybe if you wanted to give us like a little bit of your background and a little bit of the history on Elevate, that would be really cool to kind of see how that's all sort of come together, and then can sort of go from there after that.
Yeah, absolutely. Let me see. Let me start with a quick overview of my background. From the, I think from entering the workplace years back to where Elevate came online, and then what Elevate has become. So I originally, to the point of like what we were just talking about with these AI tools and how they're coming into, you know coming into formation of so many different ways to use them. I'm looking back as we talk about all of this and seeing like how technology itself has like evolved over the years that I've been in entertainment and art, right? So years back, I actually came out of school with the intent of like being an animator and an illustrator. I got my start as a pre-production artist, so as hand drawing, storyboards, concept art, actually making 3D maquettes and all of that for some really fun places everywhere from MTV to some of James Cameron's groups and that. I've always been here in Columbus, Ohio, for a number of reasons, and have like made this home. So very much outside of the center, which I think has been a big part of like how we've become and been able to be such an innovative company here at Elevate. Um, Moved into the technology space, so I see my one of my other partners, Joe Niedecken, in Elevate. He's on this call as well. But we had a former startup where we were dealing in the early 2000s, before pre YouTube. We were dealing with like what was streaming platforms and some really fun technology, and in a very early stage. We both have been, moved through like what would be, Joe was very heavily involved in what was the advertising space, while I was in AOL video for a little while. While I was there, I actually had the chance through a group of, friends that were like, we're going to make this whole feature film. I'm like, okay, this is interesting. Was able to jump into that whole process. I'm like, we just made, basically four of us, that's about it, made a feature film that we got up onto a screen, and we had our audience laughing, crying, all of those different things at the right points. And we did this for a few $1,000s, like, back in, I think this was like 2006, 2007. And I'm like, that's when my moment was, again, coming back to these AI tools and that, where it's like, this technology is available now. We don't need millions of dollars to go out and make a movie. We can do that with small tools off the shelf. We can be scrappy. I'm going to figure out how I can start to do more of that now. Was able to build up a little bit of a client base, and within a couple years, I launched Elevate Pictures. Um, Things changed dramatically though, like when we hit 2010. Actually, we were part of what was a company that got up and going called Maker Studios. Maker Studios was the first company that actually was, I think, would be the defining moment that the creator economy started. And we got to be a part of that. So like what we were doing is like figuring out like what are brand deals with all these crazy YouTubers that we were pulling up underneath, under our care. How did they collaborate together? How do we scale production across like what would be numerous YouTube channels? And we had a lot of crazy ones back, at that point. Everything from, on the music side, we had like epic rap battles and Your Favorite Martian, which was Ray William Johnson. We were signing on people like Snoop, and it was a blast. As it came out of that, I mean, Disney acquired Maker. There's a ton of wild stories around it. I always refer to it, the Social Network on acid, if there was a doc that was made about it. Um, because it was a blast and it was crazy. But as we came out of that, that's where we've continued to build as Elevate other digital networks like that. We've done that in the electronic dance music space and the broader music space. We have done that in the kids space and sports. So we've had a pretty broad reaching arm there where it's like, how are we bringing creators together with what would be, brands and all this other, these IP extensions. And that's also where we started to discover the power of what is transmedia storytelling early on in that. So we've worked a lot with franchises and how to help what would be some of the biggest creators in the world today understand how they can not get locked up around what would be one platform. How do they expand beyond that? How do they make sure their audiences are able to move across all those points? So that's a lot of what we've been able to do through the years. And then at the heart of it, though, I love coming back around to we're using like what is a team of 10 in a lot of cases where we'll be working with another team, say at Columbia Records or somebody like that, and they'll have 40 or 50 people on a call, right? So we're scrappy and we get stuff done at a very high quality, and that's something that's always excited me.
Uh, Jeremy, I want to make sure that you tell the community a little bit about Ultraman, because I think this is one
Absolutely.
that everybody loves.
Yeah, and so over the last few years, like so, just coming out of just right on the tail of COVID, Ultraman, which is a Japanese franchise that's been around since 1966, and the Japanese think about Ultraman the way that Americans think about Superman, like it's culturally ingrained there, and it had been outside of the US and most of the world for about 30 years for a number of reasons. In the meantime, you've seen things that have inspired Ultraman. Everything from Stan Lee was inspired by Ultraman to create, this how he came up with some of the look of Iron Man, for example. um you have your Power Rangers and things like that, right? Like they've made a big cultural impact in the US over those decades that Ultraman was missing. But over the last 4 years we've gotten to work with Subaraya on helping bring that story back into the US, finding like what has been a small audience and how do we then start to compound that out from there. In that time, like there's been there's anime shows on Netflix. There's a big animated ILM backed movie that came out on there last year. Marvel Comics, toy lines, licensing, merchandising, and then how that's all showing up, like with even live activations at Comic Cons and virtually. And we got to be working right in the center of all of that.
Yeah, it's so incredible, and it makes me realize how much of a cooler life that you've lived than myself so far. um, but it is really cool. Like, there's just so many different caveats to all this stuff, and that's why I'm continuously super excited about this whole partnership going forward. Would you say, like Jeremy, there's like a part of the partnership that you're really excited about, like the crypto layer of it, or like other areas? I think it is like a unique experience, right? Doing like a tokenized IP. So curious to kind of get your perspective on that as well.
Oh, first off, I'm a huge fan of the potential, because like what this is like this is fan driven directly, fans directly in a relationship with the creators, right? And that's one of the things I love about this, like down to the point of like that's the power of what I think, I mean, when I first started talking to Jeremy and he was reinforcing like what his beliefs are around all of this and like how this is a way that we can, cut out like what would be all those layers that create very boring properties in a lot of cases today, right? And cut audiences off because of IP rights and all kinds of different things. This brings it all together and creates like what is like, speed and agility and a lot of imagination and can come to life. So I love that. But then two, I really, really appreciate, Jake, you and Jeremy, like when we first started talking, your passion to like not just create something that gets out into the world, makes a little bit of money here in the short term, and then fades away quickly. It's like you're using this as a basis to move forward and build an IP that can last for decades. And a great IP in this space can be generational, and you guys are thinking like that, and that's the thing that really caught me as well, is just like the excitement that you guys had and the belief in like being able to move this forward, from what has been a foundation that's like been able to outlast so many others in this space, to being able to have the foresight for like where you want to go with it.
Yeah, I truly think it is a really unique scenario, and I do think there's really something special here going on with all this. So I really appreciate you breaking that down too, because I'm sure like even myself and a lot of people listening in the space aren't as knowledgeable in a lot of these areas. So it is really cool to kind of dive into a lot of those aspects. Two, I think what would be really interesting as well alongside of this is like when we flew out to the Elevate HQ. I want to just resurface a little bit what Jeremy was talking about when we were out there, but it was really fun to sort of come together and really workshop all of this together and just get the initial ideas and everything out there, because from everything with the start of Wen, right? It was just sort of this Solana meme coin, and there's art, and we're doing exchange listings, things like that, right, on the crypto side. And it was really cool to work in person together and really dissect the entire IP and brand, and then really find its whole way forward. So I wanted to touch on that because you kind of brought it up a little bit, and I think that was a really fun part of kicking this whole thing off.
Um,
Oh, sorry, go ahead, Jeremy.
Yeah, just to add real quick, I think what's really interesting for people, for crypto users, I think we're so used to things being extremely quick, right? Like the space moves so fast that we don't really understand how much work, from a user's perspective, we don't understand how much work goes into building something that lasts, building an IP, how much thought and care goes into it. And engaging with you all, it's really eye-opening, right? Like Caitlin, I'd love for you to share a little bit about your past experiences,
oh
and
yeah.
how difficult it is, and how long the journey is to get something from idea to reality. And
Yeah.
like I think a lot of people just don't have that background.
Yeah, and I'll jump in, and I'm really excited to give Haldy and Dave some time to talk about their backgrounds as well, because I think some of the things that I think we're all talking about is how critical the teams are to build complex projects. Like when we think about film franchise or a transmedia extension, or even one part of that, like a movie or a comic book, or online experience, like that's not something that anyone does alone. And to do it well, you've got to like measure twice, cut once. You've got to think really carefully about how you meet your goals. And if your goal is to create something that can excite and engage and sustain an audience for a year, 2 years, 5 years, a decade, multiple generations. It really does take the time to sit down and think and do the human thought of what it is that we really want to make sure we do, and then how do we get there. And that process is really ongoing. And my background is includes a lot of work developing franchise story worlds and production strategies, and like the narrative that's going to be told for really big story worlds. I got my start working with the Walt Disney Company on projects like Pirates of the Caribbean, Tron Legacy, Disney Fairies, which is Tinkerbell, for those of you who did not have the right age group for that. Um, and over the course of working on some of those stories, like it was a moment where we were bringing together, 35, 40 different international teams who were all like, they'd been working on short-term goals. How do we get this out this month? How do we build this, for next week's release? But without anyone taking the time to step back and look at how do we keep this story world healthy? What is it that fans are telling us they really want from the story world? You can put out a lot of crap fast. And to do a good plan, like to build something that can be the foundation for a sustainable story that can engage all sorts of different platform creators and last for decades and keep engaging audiences in ways that are going to be exciting. um, it takes time. You can't have a baby in 1 month, even with 9 mothers, even with AI. And so over the course of my career and after working on Tron Legacy and things like that, I worked on Avatar with James Cameron. I worked on the Halo universe with Bungie, Microsoft, and 343 Industries. I also kind of developed a passion for new media projects. One of the things I was most excited by in these really big franchises was, how do we use new tools? And the vast majority of those new tools are ones that give the audience a different way to play inside your world. Um, for most of these really big story worlds, like a Halo or even a Dexter or a Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, which has lived rent free in my heart since I was a little kid. um, people spend not just hours buying or reading a book, but weeks, months, years of their lives playing inside this world with you. This is how we build a culture that we all get to share. And you can walk into a room in almost any country in the world and find a media project, like a story world that you have in common with someone. That's incredible. It's so new and delightful, but it's also something that didn't happen overnight. It's something that the best pieces, they take years to develop fully. But as our technology has improved, as our new tools have come together, and as communities like Web3 have come together, where an idea of how we share that process is just the baseline. How are we going to connect? How are we going to share? How are we going to participate? How do we create an equitable sharing of that process together? Um, it's easier to start at the beginning and build with some of those guidelines in mind. So there's the work of creating a creative foundation, creating a production strategy that is, how do we take our resources and how do we find these partners and how do we build the actual stuff? And then how do we work with the audience? How do we build out the community? Um, and realistically, like, sure, I could throw that into Chat GPT and it would give me an answer. But the real work is when we take that outline, we take that idea, that hypothesis, and we start to work it with the creative team, the wider community, and the even wider audience that we know is going to fall in love with Wen and want to join us on this bigger journey once we start getting comics and shorts and other pieces out into the wider world and build that together. It's not just about how are we going to make things that'll be exciting this fall. It's absolutely about how is this going to be a world and a story space that we can all play in for years to come. Does that help? I mean, I'm sure there are more things that I can speak to, but
No, that's I was gonna
yeah.
say that's awesome. That is amazing. It's just reiterating, right?
Mhm.
Everything that goes into it. So I love listening to that, and I'm sure everyone also loves to learn all the background processes of this. So it
Yeah,
is really awesome. And
yeah.
I think it'd be awesome too, on top of that, for maybe Dave to jump in, just transitioning more to like the animation piece of it as well.
Yeah.
Um, what would you say, maybe Dave, if you want to jump in some of the stuff you've worked on, or kind of, all the stuff revolving around animation at
Uh,
Elevate there.
uh,
Yeah. Well, my background's in live action and from the independent side of it. I'm based in Ireland here. So, like I met Jeremy in 2021 and he introduced me to the concept of transmedia and it just kind of blew my mind. It's like, what? You got to build an audience? Don't they just show up? And which is kind of how most independent films are made, you know? So that kind of blew my mind and that just led me down the rabbit hole. And I've been sticking with it ever since. And about a year into working with Jeremy, we had like some notions about how we could animate using some of the new tools that are out there. and essentially Unreal Engine initially, and then we got some funding out of Animation Ireland here and Screen Ireland to figure that out, and it worked. And we were like, we're not bad at this. And then we started showing some people, and they were like, you're not bad at this. So we started kind of keep going at that. And like that wasn't my first animation. Actually, I did an animation in 2018, a short film called The Wireman that got onto the Oscar long list. But like I hadn't a clue what we were doing. We were just working with a big company, and then once we started getting into doing this, and I was showing other animators, and they were like, "You haven't a clue what you're doing," and we just started kind of keeping at it, and then like learning and kind of getting closer and closer to like a really solid pipeline that's producing like really amazing stuff. Where now they're like, "What the hell are you doing?" Like, and they're like, "Can you come in and talk to our students?" Because we work closely with some of the colleges here. So like we've had quite a journey on figuring this out, and at the moment, like the pipeline is so nimble and quick. Like we're doing another project, different aesthetic to this, but like we were doing 8 minutes a week with a small, tiny team, and then on when is such a beautiful aesthetic that like taking that aesthetic and bringing it into our other pipeline we thought would be more challenging, but we got it like really quickly. And we're really excited about the results that we're getting and just the speed that we can do. And then bringing that kind of cinematic storytelling into this type of animation with that aesthetic, it's just going to make this feel like really, really cinematic and adventureful. I can't wait to show people.
Um, and
When's my NDA up that I can show people?
one thing that I think there are two things that really jump out to me, Dave, and I think for the listeners, and I see these questions in the chat. This is the first of a series of live streams we're going to be doing as we bring more of this project to life and give you all more access and engage behind the scenes. But Dave, I'd love for you to speak a little bit more to some of the projects that you've got out now and some of the ones from Adventureverse. And Jeremy, maybe you can jump in too, like Winged Freaks and Deadbeat come to mind because those are really beautiful and exciting projects that I hope the folks at home can take a minute to check out because each one of these represents a different kind of leap forward in these animation pipelines that you're talking about. But one of the reasons that really drew me to y'all is just the level you're able to bring of creativity and fun and style with us with these small teams.
Yeah, like I think it like with the Winged Freaks, like what we did there was we set up a virtual studio essentially for these two characters who wanted to become YouTube stars. And then we made about 7 to 10 videos, and each video we were trying to test a different element. Like one day it was like just moving the camera, and then the next day it was like what happens if their feet move. But at the same time, we also wanted to be making content. Like it wasn't just R&D. It was like if we're going to do this, like how do we make this fun for both ourselves and then something that we can show people that they would also enjoy. So that was kind of that. And then it was like taking the format of Fact Ent that kind of exists on YouTube and just playing with that. Um, and Jeremy can speak more to Deadbeat, but I think it was like an evolution of that. And then Wen is kind of an evolution of what we did with the Winged Freaks to what we're starting to do with what was done with Deadbeat and what's emerging into Wen.
Yeah, that's great, Dave. And then in terms of the Wing of Freaks is part of a larger story world that we've been developing out called the Adventureverse, which is where the studio name has come from. Um, which is I think James Bond meets Goonies with with a great target
Yeah,
towards kids and a localized global storytelling element that's able to be put into it, right? So a lot of the processes, principles, underlying systems that we've been working through for a very long time are all being architected in underneath like what the world is here for one. And Deadbeat is another odd one. We started to work on that a couple years ago as what was going to be more of a more of a crypto project. Everything like basically stopped there, but we had a ton of development done. We're very excited about what it is, but it's a very much a meta type of project where think about a number of undead music characters, running a radio station in the future that are able to comment on music and news that's happening today but being able to, being able to bring like what is this animated world to life where they're also interacting directly with modern day music and that too. So it's been that's a fun one that we again had a development pipeline where we set up a lot around it. We've settled back on that for the moment, but it's something that we're looking to bring back to, literally we'll raise from the dead here at some point soon.
Uh, I think one of the most exciting things for me is I find myself running across GIFs of the deadbeat characters all the time. And, for all of you in the audience, like I do recommend you check that out a little because um, I think this plays into something you mentioned, Dave, building that audience. It's not something that happens overnight. It's not something that is easy. Like, you don't just build it and people come. Like, it's not Field of Dreams. And I think this is something that every project, every new piece, every new release, um, forgets at their peril. Um, the work of building an audience for a project or an intellectual property is tremendously difficult, but there are people with experience and there are tools and techniques we can use to help build it out over time. And, I think Jeremy and Dave, like Dave, you talked about it, but Jeremy, you've been doing this for decades. I'm like, I think we're all like we've got a little bit of history in the industry, so I don't want to put too much time on us, but I think what you do, Jeremy, is so much a part of the key that these big traditional players have had, which is the mindset that we're going to have to do significant investment in activation to engage an audience to build it for success. And like for my Batkel family out there, that was something that was a huge part of what we did for the DC NFT universe. How are we going to play with new experiments of how we bring the audience to life? How do we connect with people? And you're already seeing some of that start to play out on other platforms for DC. Um, but Jeremy, like, tell us a little bit about like what it's like to build an audience for some of these other projects for like Ultraman or for new programs. Like, you can't give away all your secrets in this live stream, but that's a big part of this too, where I'm so excited that this team is coming together for this IP. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, let me see if it's a broad question that
Yeah.
I'll see if I can put a little bit of shape around.
Um,
Um, I think what's amazing with Wen is like there's a core audience here, right? And a lot of you are here right now. What we're looking at is like how we're able to start to create like what is, a new audience through what will be expanded channels, where it's probably going to aim towards like what would be more an audience that's like I'm all about going to a store and picking up like what would be licensed products, right? And tuning in on those shows and that. But something that's been that we've continued to work through the years is like everyone especially today 2025 and what we'll see in 26, how we were building an audience just a couple years ago to like what's happening today is continues to change. Like this, the overall social spaces, how you're building an audience, how you're connected to them, how the platforms are actually giving you like what would be access to the audience that you've carefully built over the years continues to evolve like constantly. So that's like one of the I think that's one of the things that we have to recognize is like where we're building, how we're building, and how we're creating like what is a direct owned and operated audience is a very important thing. More important today than it was just 12 months ago. If we go back in time though, like what really have loved to see though is just how different creators are able to get moving. They start building slowly, and you start to see like what are these upticks. You get your first 1,000 subscribers on YouTube. The next thing you know, like that turns into five. That turns into 100,000, and just these exponential climbs that start to happen. and how the monetization around all of that can work too. I mean, I think a company that I love to watch out there is there's a group out there called Glitch Studios, and they've been building on YouTube with a number of different show formats, and they get the views are bonkers, and they're able to get like so much traction out of that fan base that they're able to self fund, right? So which is very that's something that was unheard of just a couple years ago, an animation studio starting up working directly with with a fan base on a platform like YouTube and being able to make enough money to be able to make a very expensive cartoon series, and they've got multiple ones that they continue to launch. So I I love the grind, and I love the tenacity that that shows up in the ability to create like what would be those kind of those kind of options. And if those set up right, as you start to build an own audience, it creates like what are these it creates like what is power for the IP as well. So meaning like when a Netflix or a bigger, streaming partner, whoever that might be, comes knocking and says, like, we would love to work with that. What typically happens are what are called 360 deals, where in a lot of cases, like that studio or that streaming platform will gobble up like what would be all of the IP rights, meaning they own everything. They make all the money first, and then there's like the flow back that comes to the creators last by having an audience that's like there over time, which takes longer for sure. We end up like getting like into a position where, again, using Glitch as an example, Netflix came along and just licensed all of that material, but they have no control over it, and it's still allowed to live on YouTube. It's a game changer.
Yeah, I think, a similar thing that comes out of my experience in the entertainment industry is like, look at K-pop Demon Hunters. Massive super success that came out this fall, inescapable this Halloween. Sony Animation made that, but didn't keep any of the rights. So, when we look at these projects, we're trying to build a foundation for really smart, sustainable growth that includes the partnerships and relationships that build out and feedback positively to the community. We want to get Wen out to the most people possible and be able to showcase it at the style and scale and, beauty that the work that has been done to date has brought to life. And frankly, like, if you don't get cute aggression immediately from looking at Wen, like, we know that that is going to translate because we already see how many people have immediately connected with Wen, as a character, not just through how many people have engaged with the coin, but also it's immediately appealing to anyone who we put it in front of, and I know that as we bring it to more audiences, they're gonna have that same feel, they're gonna have that same excitement, that joy that one is gonna bring, and we're gonna grow. Um, with that in mind, I would love to give you a little bit of space, Haldi, because Haldi, your background is so incredible, and the ability you have to create impactful art, and what you're doing to help us build out the concept development here. I'm just so excited by it. Tell us a little bit about yourself. I think for many of you, this is the quietest I've ever heard you.
Yeah, there hasn't been a lot of time to chip in, and you guys have been doing such a great job, and everything feels a little bit more relevant, I think, to the community. Like, I'm more of a storyteller, pure and true, like whether that's visual storytelling or narrative. Not that everyone else isn't, but there's so much talk of monetization and blah blah blah. So like, that's not really my world. But like, I feel like I was kind of brought on to help, build a brand and help build the world in a way that's cool and authentic and will resonate with people and attract new people to the coin. And my favorite kinds of projects are always ones where there's already like a beautiful core base to work with. And I love the aesthetic of When. It's got this great kind of unique style kind of anime inspired thing. And I think like taking that and building out a whole roster of characters and world around that and aesthetic to everything has been um, very fun for me to work on. My background is I started as a junior graphic designer. I was working at a greeting card company and then um, was hustling at night online and build a portfolio. I really wanted to work in music and I kind of made a fake portfolio of music stuff and applied for a job at Def Jam and ended up getting it and worked my way up from junior designer up through creative director. And I got to work with some of the biggest artists in the world. It was truly my dream job. Um, I worked with Nas, Jay-Z, J. Cole, Rihanna, Bon Jovi, countless artists when I was in-house there. And then it's been really interesting. I'm older, so I watched kind of the downfall of artistic like music branding, where people weren't even sure if there was even going to be album artwork at all anymore towards the end of my career, and I kind of saw the writing on the wall. So I started applying for jobs where I wanted to get into advertising, and it was kind of boring. And then I found a great opportunity where basically SoundCloud was building their advertising platform in-house, and they needed a creative director to work with brands, but also they liked working with people who had music industry, either music industry experience or were musicians themselves. So it was kind of like a perfect fit for me. And I jumped over there and came on as creative director of the marketing for the advertising platform, worked with the product team to build the actual like um products that we use, like where the ads would live, but then also got to work with the clients to how their work came to life through our platform and IRL kind of transmedia or cross platform kind of approaches, which was really fun and I learned a ton there. And then while I was there, I kind of fell in love with the brand, and my counterpart on the other side of the world left, and I applied for his job and moved over and oversaw the global brand, which was really cool. I got to launch the SoundCloud Go, which was like their monetization and membership essentially platform, and we branded all that and got to do all the launch events and all the assets that came with bringing that to life. And eventually just kind of felt like I did what I came to do there and set off on my own and started my own studio, which is when I started to work with Jeremy. And then since then, I've worked my own studio. We did a lot of work with like in the entertainment space. So key artwork for Always Sunny in Philadelphia, Dave, a ton of stuff with FX. We worked with Disney, 2K, ESPN, tons of people. And then finally made things a little bit more official and came over to help with Elevate. And this is one of my first projects working with them. And really just trying to take the Wen property and build it out into something that has authenticity and cultural relevance and really feels like it resonates with new audiences and youth culture, I think is like a big part of what I'm trying to do. And sustaining the amazing, beautiful uh, aesthetic that has already been established and building that out into a bigger world, obviously with the wide team, but kind of helping to oversee that.
Yeah. Something I absolutely love about your background, Haldy, is the sophistication you bring from having worked in so many different types of partner, whether those are clients or advertising or musical artists. And I know that you've worked with some of the most exacting musical artists in the
Yeah,
business to be able to bring that work to life. Um,
for
you know,
sure.
I'm really excited in future conversations that we're going to get to have with the community to be able to show off some of the work we've been doing and have you talk about the philosophy of creation that you're approaching this with. And also to start diving into like the differences between different types of explorations, like what is different for a comic versus what is different for music key art, and to be able to dive deeper in that together. And I think, I'm noticing that we're hitting the hour. And part of my life in this project is making sure that we let everybody get back to business because we are working day in, day out to bring this to life. And we're so excited to be able to share more with the community in the next few weeks, but not today. I know. Those of you who have been with me on .cal programs know that that's how it goes. But you know, we're definitely going to be able to show you more soon. And you know, as we keep doing these live streams more regularly, give everybody a little bit more of a look inside the foundation of what we're building to last. Not just to be the cutest cat on the internet, which Wen always will be, but to try and make sure that we can grow this together in a way that is exciting, expansive, ambitious, and really connects with a wide variety of people outside of the folks who already know and love this character. And to give you all opportunities to plug in with us as we grow.
I love it. I love it. Well, yeah, I guess should we just sort of wrap it up from there then, or we could dive into some other things? Or what are you thinking, Caitlin?
Um, let's see. I think we should probably wrap for some of my team members at least, and we would love to get questions from you all about what you're most interested in next. We love connecting with fans, and we're always excited to chat more. Obviously, with the proviso that I'm gonna try and lock people in closets to get work done too. But you know, we're going to have a lot of fun in this program, and I can't wait to share more of it with you all and bring you inside this production process in more depth as we bring more of it to life.
I love it. Well, awesome. Yeah, let's go from there then. And then yeah, people who have questions and all that stuff, feel free to compile them up and we'll make sure to come back and circulate through everything for next spaces and for the next ones as well. But other than that, then I really appreciate everybody jumping on and thank you for taking time out of your day. I know everyone's just as busy as we are, so it means a lot, and I cannot wait for the progression of everything here. And I can't wait to show everyone what we're up to. So exciting times.
Yeah. Yeah.
We'll s-
Yeah, thank you, Jake. Thank you, Jeremy. Thank you, Wen. Thank you, audience members, for joining us today. It's always a pleasure. Yeah.
Sweet. Well, yeah, we'll end the space there, guys. Enjoy.